listening to Dr. Margaret and Dr. Katie Speaks this evening on Soma Fusion Media. Welcome to everybody. Tonight's subject is miracles, and we are going to be talking all about what a miracle is and giving our personal stories about what we perceive miracles to be. Each to their own. We can go different routes of telling you what miracles can be or what is perceived to be to each and every person. But I would like to just sum it up with a quote that I wrote. The difference between a miracle and an act of nature is only in frequency. Imagine that the sun were to rise only once in our lifetime. Everyone would rush to see it, proclaiming it to be the most miraculous event they've ever witnessed. But since we experience a sunrise every day, we see it as just another ordinary part of our lives. The question is the word miracle used so often that sometimes for such trivial events, just like a sunrise, does it become a cliche? That is up for us to explore with you listeners tonight. And with that said, the first word, I'm going to pass it over to Margaret, and she's going to talk about what miracle is from her point of view.
Well, I've been flooded by spirit guides all week talking about the miracles of life. And that was partly because one of my clients birthed a baby and there was dire issues. Okay. And so mom was bad, baby wasn't so good and so on. But with the healing energy of the oneness that I asked for, they would go and heal them. And so from their point of view, everything kicked in and everything was wonderful. So from their point of view, it was a miracle, right? And those are the kinds of things that most people think about, where someone's ill and they suddenly get better, right? Or someone has found out something and they've suddenly found some money or something that they needed in the moment of crisis, and out of the blue, someone turns up and helps them, and that's another kind of miracle. So when we stop and generally think as children, whatever a miracle is to us, it goes right back to the fairy, the tooth fairy, Santa Claus, all these kinds of things, because there's no explanation for it, right? Mm-hmm. So you say, well, the Santa can't come down the chimney because we don't have one. And mum says something like, but that's all right because he's magic and he can come through the walls or through the window. And don't worry, Santa, you've been a good child, haven't you? So, Santa will get in here somehow. Of course, time goes by and it's Christmas morning and miracles happen. He's come through a window. And you believe that because you've seen daddy and mummy opening windows. So you assume somehow Santa's gone in. But now we add magic, right? And it's like, okay, a spirit can pass through a wall. Santa can pass through a wall. A fairy can pass through a wall. We can't walk through a wall. So we're never going to create a miracle. And I'm going to throw it back to you and say, you tell your little story about your little miracle.
My little miracle?
Yeah.
Miracle. Okay. So my little miracle is that I've had 5 children, believe it or not. I think all of my 5 children have had really, really bad pregnancies. Of course, my last child I did lose abruptly. As sad as that really sounds, I mean, we celebrate. I celebrate his birthday every year, regardless, in memory. And of course, the miracle of life is the fact that I am born, but also too. In terms of my birth, I mean, I was born 8 weeks premature. So there were, back in the 80s when children were born, there weren't a lot of things to save children from having debilitative conditions resulting from premature birth. So I managed to escape with a lot. You wouldn't even notice that anything wrong with me right now, but I actually do have a disability, and that is that I lost my hearing. So, but that's never stopped. It's never stopped me from living, and that is one miracle in itself. The other miracles of life is that, you know, through the trials or tribulations of my life, I've had heartbreaking circumstances from abuse to health issues to all sorts of you know, limitations, suffering of all different types. And of course, you know, when you go through that, you start to look down upon yourself because you are not, you're not in a good place, so to speak. And when you are not in a good place, you become very depressive, you become very alone, you become very, you know, hyper aware of your situation, but you disregard it and avoid it to cause further to prevent yourself from causing further suffering to yourself. Even though there might be a circle of friends around you or family that do actually actively love and support you, you may not have that support. And with my circumstances, I never had that support at all. And many of the times you know, I thought about suicide. And I will tell you out there, for listeners who don't know anything about my story, I have attempted suicide not once but 4 times in my entire life. And I was going down on a bad road because it got to a point where, you know, I just wanted to give up. I didn't want to go down that route anymore, just, you know, because in my mind, because of all the abuse and suffering that I'd suffered from and endured, that I just didn't want to be here anymore. And a lot of people do go through that, and they give up on their own, they exhaust their personal will, so to speak. And so when you start to realize that you are the captain of your life, you can inwardly change sails once you recognize that you are in charge of that
So
ship.
what was your miracle?
My miracle is that I'm here.
Ah, okay. I was thinking you were going to tell me something like somebody came in the door and gave you something or did something,
You know,
and it was just what you needed at that moment. And that in itself is a kind of miracle, because the oneness knows and
well,
sends someone.
that is very, very true. I mean, I've had very, very close personal friends that have, you know, who just stuck by me each and every single way, you know. And that support that I never had, especially in the last 2 years, that support I've never had has now come to me. And it's like, okay, well, now I've got my own tribe, my little army, call it what you will. These are my little warriors that I am inspired by, and they are inspired by me. But this is what a soul connection is all about, is that bringing that miracle in full circle and having that ability to share common ground with a lot of people who are literally stuck on a dark path.
Hmm. Well, you know, when I think about miracles, I look at them in slightly different ways from just my existence. So I have to admit that is because, like you, yes, I've been suicidal and nearly killed me in babies and did all sorts of things, you know, and it's written in my life story. So I don't want to be negative today. I want to try and bring us up and be more positive. And like I said, you know, being able as a healer to ask the oneness to send the angels to go and do the healing on my behalf to help them is in itself a miracle. Every day of my life, I feel like when I get up from, and I mean this when I was a child too, because there was so much negativity going on around me, that there was a joy in being able to know something and do something, no matter what it was. So, you know, my idea of a miracle is always about being able to do something you don't expect you could do, like you were drawing, remember? And everyone was like, wow, where'd that come from? Well, to me, that's a miracle. You discovered something in yourself that you didn't know, and you brought it out of you, and it transformed you as you were doing that. And when I look back through my life, I have to admit there have been hundreds of many miracles. Like, for example, I had no money and I couldn't buy any food for my kids' dinner that night. And we were fresh in America, so, you know, nobody knew me. It wasn't like I could call up and get help. So I just sat down and I said to Spirit, I really need a reading. I need someone to come for a reading, and please help me. And I sat there in prayer, connecting the oneness, but there was the negative side of me underneath, worried, sick, what am I going to do if I can't even feed the kids, how am I going to pay the rent, and so on. And so, but I believed in the power of support and love and spirit guides, even though many times I'd asked many times, as you said, were negative, and you sit there and pray and please God and nothing happens, and so here I was in that kind of on-off part of me, but there was a deeper heart part of me was so sad that I couldn't feed the children, that I let it flow away from me. And in that moment, I felt a little energy lift. And within a minute from there, literally, the phone went. And I picked it up, of course, and it was someone. She said, I've got a big problem and I really, really need someone to help. And someone told me you're very good, blah, 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 blah. And I wonder if you could just squeeze me in right now because I really need help right now. Of course, I'm on the other end, like, yes, of course you can come in, And I put that phone down and the tears of joy came down my face because there was the proof that the oneness has got my back. And that was my mini miracle. Can I tell you one more story that I really want to tell? Sure. Okay, I had, when I was in the same house, one of my kids found a kitten. And they brought it over and asked us if we could have it. Well, I love animals and we're fresh in, and my husband was like, but I said, well, they got to have something. So he agreed, and we had this one kitten. Well, it grew up to be about 6 months and it disappeared. And, they were upset, but it wasn't the end of the world. And by then I was teaching development circles, seance circles, because that was the in thing in those days. And I had these students who were there. And one of them said, oh, you've lost your kitten. I should get you a new cat. I'm going to the pound. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Sure, am I supposed to have a cat, again, and all that kind of thing, because I was traveling and trying to get known here. And lo and behold, she comes back the following few days with a gorgeous cat, mature cat, that was calico. And she was so timid, she wouldn't come near me. She would run and hide all the time. And I'm thinking, what I've got this animal for? And then after that, a couple of months later, I was working in an office doing readings. And this person said, I've got to find a home for my white cat because I'm moving. It's only a year old, blah, blah, blah. So I ended up taking that. So I had 3 cats. One's disappeared. Then I come home and I find out the 2 cats, the calico cat and the white cat, were not liking one another. So they were always running away from one another. One day the calico cat disappears. And so now we're down to the white cat still. And a couple of months have gone by, or 3 or 4, maybe longer. It was a while, I tell you. And so the white cat's missing. She was yowling, and I'd never had a cat that had been spayed, and she wasn't spayed yet because she, whatever the word is that you use, I can never remember which is a dog or which is a female treatment, but anyway, to be done. And so we were, and how was I going to pay for that? Because I haven't got any money, blah, blah. So she goes missing. Mm-hmm. So then I put up my copper pyramid out in my yard, and I sit under it, and I said to Spirit, with all the love divine and everything, please find my cat for me. The white one, I'm thinking, right? Well, to tell you what happened, I get a phone call within half an hour from a woman who is the wife of the plumber that we'd had. And she says, I have your cat. And it's up the hill and a ways, like 2 or 3 streets up the hill a ways. So I go up thinking I'm going to get the white cat, and I'm thinking, how did she run all that far? And she opens the door, and in her arms is the calico cat. And I'm like, oh, my goodness, we lost this cat 6 months ago. She said, oh, well, that explains it, because I had an Alsatian that has just gone down because it had leukemia. And since she would never come near the house, we'd try and get her, but she'd run. But now she's starving, so she finally let me feed her and pick her up. So that's how she got her. So I'm bringing, and she remembered me. And so I brought her home. and I made sure the doors are shut, right? And then my kids come running in. Mummy, look what we found. We've made a new friend in school, and we found our original first cat.
Mm-hmm.
So they got that now grown, and the woman had many cats down there. So she insisted they brought it home. So I've got 2 cats. About half an hour later after that, so this is all over an hour and a half about, my neighbor bangs on my door. She's just been away for a long weekend, and she's had the white cat locked in her garage. Not before she got by the way, and had babies. But 3 cats, the spirit guides brought. That was a miracle to me, beyond anything you could ever expect to happen, where you've asked the oneness, and all 3 cats, because that first one was a year old.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just amazing to me. That was a complete miracle. What do you think about that one?
That's a positive story.
Yeah.
And see, I'm going to come from a different angle, that miracles, because a lot of people experience miracles not just in positive thought, but also in through trauma. A lot of people, because they're looking and they're searching for something, or they're searching for meaning, they're searching for purpose, they're searching for whatever it is they're searching for, whether spiritual or non-spiritual, it doesn't really matter. People are always going to seek, because they a miracle can be seen as something that is profoundly a shake up in the story, in the journey, and it allows you to see that help is really there in the most unusual of ways. It's kind of like talking about serendipity. Serendipity is looking straight ahead at a goal that you're looking at, and then suddenly something else comes up, and like that fork in the road, you're looking in a different direction, and that other direction is the miracle in itself. It leads you on a different path, and therefore you find the discovery that was actually better than the path that you were really on.
Yeah. So, in terms of things that I've experienced, not just myself, but in my children and other people, is that when we get to a point, and it doesn't matter whether we're praying or asking spirit, this is just everyday stuff. When we get to a point where we give up, it's like I'm fighting for something, like you said, I want to achieve some goal, something, and you've done everything you can think of, and you finally get to that point and you think, I give up. Oh, it must be something else. And in that moment, something else happens that is as clear as the day, that it's something you really want, and it takes you off in that new direction. And maybe a year or 2 later, you're looking back and going, that was a miracle. But at the time, you see it as a rescue. It saved me. It's an alternative. I've got something. I had many of those examples in my life. And I've had, even from the point of view of, like, I've turned up to do an event, and nobody's turned up. That was in this country in the early days when I was here, but one girl. And we ended up talking. And as a result of her, she insisted, late at night, midnight, she took me to meet a British medium down in San Diego, who had this enormous kitchen table. Mm-hmm. I'm talking enormous, probably heavy wood, and you just put your hands on this, and we had our hands on it, and I was very stressed and tired and exhausted and so on and so forth, and this table came up like this, that I had my hands up like this on it. It was this high on its 2 legs, just poised there, and the 3 of us only had our hands resting on the surface. We're not holding it. To me, that is energy. That is a miracle. That is the magic that people are always looking for. And it just poured this cold energy into me. And then when it finally went down again, it didn't plop down like that because of the weight. It went down like this, so slowly, until it hit the floor with a little bump, And I've never seen, for all my years of being in my profession, I have never seen a table move like that. I've seen paranormal stuff, but that to me was what I would classify. If someone came into the room and they didn't know about psychic energy, they would just say they'd witnessed a miracle. And if I take that back to the 1600s. I was listening to Spirit during that time too about different things. I was writing novels and things at that time about energy and things like that. And they were saying to me that back in the Dark Ages, which is even earlier, coming into the 1600s with the Renaissance or whatever, that whole period, there were a lot of people on earth who were doing miracles like that kind of thing with energy, with spirit. It was a breakout period, which led to them trying to kill everybody and so on, which wasn't a miracle because, like Joan of Arc was burned to death. But, when she came to me and I was channeling her back in England many years ago, because I identified with her and her suffering, she actually told me that while she was burning, she didn't feel any of it. Spirit took the pain from her. She died from suffocation. She couldn't breathe. She wasn't aware of being burned at all. To me, that would be another kind of miracle. I think there are a lot of people that can come forward. If there's anyone listening, by the way, if you've got a miracle and you want to tell us, we'd love to hear it. Like if you're in a car accident, the car's a write-off, like my brother-in-law, absolute write-off, and he got out of there, not a scratch anywhere. The car line molded around him, and he was able to slither out like a snake and stand there by looking at the mess of his car and saying, I can't believe I didn't get hurt. He flipped it. He was dozing, he flipped it, and it rolled and rolled, and you can imagine what it looked like after that. Yeah. So anyone listening who's got a miracle, do call in. We got a number for them.
Yeah, the number is 929-436-2866 with the meeting ID number when prompted 522-657-2748. That is 929-436-2866 with the meeting ID number when prompted 522-657-2748. Now, the question is really here on miracles is in a different perspective is it really a question of how we understand God? Maybe let's go to the religious metaphysical side. And so the understanding of how God and his role or her role, whichever you call it, plays in our own spiritual life. And going down that route by analyzing the anatomy of miracles and understanding that our feelings about miracles, we can actually learn a lot, basically, to help us understand the deeper meaning of life. And of course, like I said, going back to what I said before, we're always looking, we're always searching. So when things come out that is profound, so when we talk about miracles, I think we can agree that a miracle is a benefit, and a benefit that cannot be explained regardless of whether we try and analyze it or not. It's something that we can't explain, and it can't even be explained by the laws of nature. So first we have to answer the question, and I do put this out to the listeners here, is what is a natural event? And why wouldn't any natural event that awes and excites us be considered as a miracle?
And, not all miracles are, especially if you're taking a religious trip on that with the energy, not all miracles appear like miracles. Like if we go back as far as Moses and Egypt and the plagues, in those days, from the point of view of people, we now know locusts will fly every so often, but how could we know when they were and why all those things happened, one on top of another over a period of 3 months, when it was out of season for the locust to fly, or it was out of season for the germs to come in, or whatever it was. It was all to them sudden and terrible. But then when you think how it led to them all leaving and gaining their freedom, mind you, they wandered in the desert for 40 years. I don't call that a miracle. But what I'm saying is, in the overview, things happen in way ancient times, and we see its history and we don't think of it as a miracle, but rather happening. But when we look along the line, the date line, as it were, into now, think about how much the history is still going on over the Jews and the Arabs over there. Meanwhile, the rest of the world, we've all embraced Jews. We don't mind whether they're Jewish or not. We don't mind they're Catholic or not. To me, that's a miracle that we found some measure of unity in our species from back when there was no unity, everything was war, and so on, and many times. So, if I was going to go in that way, I would say that a miracle happens over eons of time if we bother to see the threads of it evolving. What do you think?
I think so. And I do know, regardless of natural law, it's also inherent human trait. We've become so accustomed to something that, no matter how extraordinary it may be, we take it for granted, and that's when we see we can flip it. We can flip it on the other end. Are the miracles that come to us, we love it the first time because it surprises us, it puts us in that state of elation. But when we have it continually happen to us, we start to question. It's like, hang on, am I abusing the nature of law? Am I the law of nature? Am I using a miracle to explain an excuse that I have in my life? Am I using a miracle to get what I want?
Actually, you're bringing up a very valid point there, that a lot of people are in a lot of judgments around whatever their issue is. And in those points, they are looking for that miracle. And there are people, and I'm going into the negative again, who are con artists, who come in and give them the miracle, so it seems, but then they've got a hook. Mm-hmm. And that hook keeps that person tied to them. And then over a period of time, that person, I've had this happen to me several times, with patients and stuff, that person is worn down so much and they're so ill and so mentally this and that, whatever, because of this original belief in a miracle. And when I start saying to them, no, you made it a miracle by your beliefs and your ideas and so on. And once I start working with them to understand that, this was a con, then they start doubting that miracles even exist. So I'm pointing out here by that example that a lot of people have unrealistic connotations around the idea of manifesting a miracle. And I've actually had people come in and, for treatment or healing, and they've actually said to me, I expect a miracle. And immediately I'm going, oh God, are you listening?
Here's the thing though, we constantly need it, like I said, it's inherent human trait, but we need a new rush of excitement to arouse our interest in whatever it is we're going through or whatever it is we're doing. Someone will say, let's first take this for example. If I only saw a miracle, then I would believe, then I would change my life.
I've heard that one a lot. Yeah.
But what are we really waiting for? Are we waiting for the seas to part or split or do whatever? Or
I think they are, in a way.
Because miracles are happening around us all the time. It's a matter of changing our perception, getting rid of everything that we inherently believe to be true, and seeing it from a different perspective, opening our eyes to see what is there. And so life, just as an example, is an inherent miracle itself. Consider just for a moment here the sheer wonder of human birth. Now, if in fact we do refer to birth as a miracle, then why do we also easily forget that every person on earth is a product of a miracle?
Because when I actually talked about this on my own show on miracles, but I took a different trade on it. But what I was actually talking about there was how the birthing aspect, and if you've ever not your own, but other people's, the birthing aspect is very traumatizing. Mm-hmm. Watching it, being nurse, doctor, whatever, and having to do, and everybody's very focused and very involved with it. And then out comes that little head and the rest of it. And then you go, oh, wow, look, here's a gorgeous baby, and so on and so forth. And so that the end product is that. But to me, if I think about the body, not just a baby, but everything about us, every 7 years, we have new cells everywhere. Isn't that a miracle in itself, that we don't even have to think about it? We don't have to do anything. It's just automatic that our brain box, who's encoded with whatever it needs to be encoded to do, can consciously, subliminally, deep subconsciously, whichever way you want to look at it, say, switch on the renovation key, or whatever it might be, and start rebuilding the body, provided we don't mess it up, of course, because there are people who abuse their bodies, we all know that. But those of us who care and take, bother about our lifestyles and, try and live the best we can see when you're rejuvenated. You know when you're going to rejuvenate, because that year before, you look like a prune, you look like, everything's wrong in your body, and you're thinking, oh my God, and you don't feel right, and your emotions are changing. And I'll say why here briefly for that. Everything we think is stored into every cell in our body. Mm-hmm. So in order for you to get your new body, you've got to dump your ways you think. And it's hard to suddenly say, I don't believe this anymore, when you believed it for X number of years and so on. But there always comes these dreams. We go to bed at night and we start having these panic dreams, or we have these misery dreams, or we have these worry dreams. And then after that, we start having these dreams that are like flying or skating, or, something that takes us off the ground in a way, or whizzes us along. And it's like we're having fun. We're riding this something, and we wake up and think, oh, wow, everything's better. And what they've actually just experienced is the beginning of the regrowth of the body. And that is a miracle, because you don't have to sit there and say, now, am I getting 3 more cells here? And do I need to take something? It's just happening. Yeah.
Not to get technical over it though, but we don't even, a lot of people who are, we don't just naturally study anatomy of the human body and what our body does, but it's nice to know. But we're not looking for that. We don't understand that there's a 7-year cycle that we rejuvenate. So that's why we put ourselves in that position where we literally just expect. We really do. We really expect. And of course, since we are so distracted by daily struggle to survive, by our responsibilities, our obligations, we tend to ignore those facts.
But on the other side of the fact, I know we ignore it, but think about how many people come up to you and they say, I'm the 7th son of the 7th something. And we do know that 7 is a karmic number. And we do know that even if we're someone who's on the streets smoking marijuana or whatever, I guarantee if you said to them, do you know what 7 is, they'll come back with one of the beliefs around 7 and say, yeah, I'm 7 days in the week, 7, years of trial and tribulations or whatever. But coming back to that number, if you break it down, it's 3 and 4, and 3 is a trinity, and 4 is form. Mm-hmm. So when you're thinking you want transformation and change, you're thinking the Father, Son, Holy Spirit if you're a Catholic, or you're thinking, sages and gurus in other religions. I won't bother everyone with all of that, but the bottom line is we all have a foundation stone of philosophy and theology around 7. And when you think, like I'm now 79, I've had 11 periods of 7, mm-hmm. Right? So my body has changed 11 times. I'm not I'm not the same person I was born. I don't have the same skin, because we have 7 layers of skin, by the way. So that's peeling off all the time. Every day we're flaking all over the place. So we're actually growing new skin all the time. That's why we have to keep it nice and moist. Otherwise it's all flaky. And so, there are 7 chakras, and, there's so many sevens everywhere. And it's the 3 is the higher and the 4 is the lower self. So we are amalgamating our spirit with our body all the time. And it's our spirit that recognizes, in my opinion, an opportunity that might end up being a miracle. But we don't know we're recognizing it till it happens.
Well, I can't get away from sevens. I was born on the 7th of the 7th.
Oh, I did know that, but
Yeah.
but okay, so that makes sure that every day of your life you're thinking about, what do I want to do this week?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
People who are born on 7s are very, very highly spiritual. You can't get away with it. It just lives in it. It's pretty much in your blood. They, as 7 people are very highly creative. And so,
exactly. Yeah. So highly creative people also, if we talk about someone like Tesla, who could think of all those scientific things that we're now going ooh ah about, because how right he was, and they're proving it. Well, we could go back into history 300, 400 years, whoever you want to find some sage or guru of the time, and we can now say of them, oh, those people were amazing, they were ahead of their time, and so on. So where I'm coming from here with this is, I think, well, I know in a way from the oneness that up there in the powers that be, for people who just think of it as heaven, there are people up there who are figuring out what we're going to need next week, next month, next year, or something. And whether they're coming into embodiment or whether they're just working a miracle by moving energy or whatever, we have to remember we're never alone. And there's always, if we are looking and expecting a miracle, we can get one. If we allow ourselves to think of that higher part, the part of the oneness that takes care of us. And unfortunately, right now, there's so many people who are ill because of the dreaded lurgy. And, that we're losing people off the planet, and people are like, this is terrible trauma. But, if we go back through history, we've seen disease wipe out nations. It's not new. This is the way we prune ourselves down, same with animals. And so here I want to say, our spirit in the body is a miracle. Every part of our spirit is, one little tiny blob of our spirit is in a cell. And when you think we have billions of cells, and they're all different types, the fact that our spirit is in each one of those cells, controlling this body, allowing us to get up out of a chair, bend on the floor, pick up something, put it on the side, and not even think about the fact that you've done it, is in itself, in my opinion, a miracle. And people don't realize that until they can't do it anymore.
Yeah, and the other thing is too is that the very noise of life drowns out the underlying sound that we should be most real to us. It's for those who don't believe in miracles, they just simply stop taking the time to appreciate them. To see a miracle means to appreciate the uncommon within the common and the extraordinary within the ordinary.
Well, that's a very complicated sentence. I'm actually thinking while you were talking about that, I was actually thinking, well, okay, I don't know that they don't accept they are a walking miracle. I think they did when they were young, but with the negativity that comes at us, I think we're disappointed so many times with expectations where we don't manifest something, or people around us don't manifest something, that we tell ourselves there is no such thing as a miracle. And that's why I think it's very important to begin with ourselves. The fact that I can open these eyes and I can look across the room and I can tell whether that's yellow or that's blue or that's green or whatever, is in itself a knowledge, it's a wisdom. But what do I feel when I touch green or yellow or whatever it is? There's a different energy. And I still think that kind of way is a miracle, that we can tell what's going on around us. I mean, when you think animals, they can only tell their environment, they can't talk. You know, we're supreme beings.
Mhm. And what about thinking about whether, you know, we are all unique in our own ways, our own skin. Yes, of course, we do take life for granted at times. But what about actually seeing our life as an uncommon life rather than seeing the normalcy of what is common?
Hmm. I think that's a good idea, because I think everybody should have some part of their life that it takes them into the unknown to explore. Because when you find something new, it's like, oh, what's this? And how's this work? And why is it here? It takes you away from the other things that you say, oh, I know this, I know this, I know this, boring, boring. You know, it brings a bit of excitement into you, but it's the spirit of our being that is saying, value this, appreciate this. This is your mini miracle for today. Okay. And most of us don't catch those mini miracles.
No.
I mean, I can tell you a very obvious mini miracle I used to appreciate was when my friend was living with me. She didn't know. We had a sort of telepathic link, still does. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh, I really need a drink. And in seconds, she is coming in with a drink for me. You know, to me, that was a miracle, because she was picking up my thoughts. And then I would be doing something and I'd go into her and ask a question. She said, I was just thinking that, you know, so we had a lot going on. We still do it, though we're far apart, but people don't realize we have this ability to know one another and be there for one another without having to say a word or do anything. To me, that's a miracle too.
Yes, but we're not looking for it, and that's the thing.
No,
We're not looking for it. Our eyes are sealed shut. We are quote unquote sheep. We're blinded. We're blindsided, and when we are blindsided, that's when miracles come to us the most. And even then, sometimes because we take life for granted, we're not going to see it.
is your mic plugged in?
I think my mic plugged in.
Yeah, because usually you're definitely me, and today you're so quiet. I'm just do a miracle.
But no, but like I said, you know, when we can recognize the extraordinary within the ordinary, this is where we get supernatural or the unknown occurrences that are not so significant. Um, when we see in terms of our faith, and life, it's not dependent on such miracles. Um, you know, we have to for you to have a mature relationship with reality that is higher than yourself, and you realize that the ultimate miracle um, is our very existence.
Right, and of course you're right, and we can analyze that 1,001 ways. But you know, one of the things that I think is really put too much aside is our gifts, our talents.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
was going to say too that with that curiosity, that drive in order to seek the unknown, which eventually, once our eyes are open and our perceptions start to change on our outlook of illusion and reality and perception, then we can start to see the curiosity of life and enhances our imagination to
mm.
such things can occur.
You're reminding me of when we were in Las Vegas and we went through that garden area with all the flowers made and the gnomes and everything. To me, the people came together and did that. It's like when they do the New Year Bowl thing in California, when they do all the floats and stuff before the game. That to me is a miracle. When people can find a unity of common ground to come together and produce something so beautiful, so exquisite. We all stand there going, oh, wow, you know, we're speechless. To me, that's a miracle too.
You're talking about the indoor gardens in the Ballard.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right. They were cool. I like them.
yeah. And you know, when I lived in California after the Rose Bowl parade had happened, we were close enough to go there and walk around the floats and look at them, because it's one thing seeing them come around on the television, and obviously you see how enormous they are, but when you're actually walking around them and you're looking at all the work that these people, whoever they are, have come together to do through the night and day and night. They don't sleep, you know, because the flowers won't last very long.
I'm trying to figure out how they actually, because it's all real. They are real plants and real flowers, real everything. And I'm like going, how do you keep it that pristine? Are you using hairspray? No, I'm kidding. You wouldn't use hairspray.
No, well, that was indoors too, but I think they've got water underneath everything somewhere. But so the flowers are getting watered. But whatever it is, to me, the miracle is not what we're seeing in a way, it is what we're seeing. But I'm saying behind that is the miracle of unity, of people coming together, and they put all their stuff aside, you know, their worries, their anxieties, whatever, they're just totally focused on a project. And it's so beautiful that we all stand back and say, it's like magic. How did you do all that?
Well, yeah, that goes straight into the contemplation of the awesome design and the balance within you know, the family of the animal kingdom, the vegetables that we eat, well, fruit and vegetables, or even the mineral. To say that nothing of beauty of the human body or the elegance of the solar system, for instance, the miracle of nature is not to be found in a once in a lifetime event, but it's in its relentless clarity.
And you know, I first saw when Socrates was with me, and I wrote in my book, remember, that the ants were calling at me. But you know, what he took me to understand was that even an ant is a miracle, because its little body, its brain knows where it's going to go. It knows what its job is. It's consolidated with all the other ants that are similar to it, so they all go off together. The only ones that fight are the warriors, and they fight to keep stray bugs out. You know, they don't fight one another. But on the other side, if one of their warrior ants loses a leg, so he said, they will kill it out of mercy. You can't think of an ant as being merciful, can you? But that is a miracle, that this tiny little thing knows when a fellow ant is suffering to end its life. And even more so, a bit cannibalism, to eat it. They eat it not because they want, you know, food, but because they don't want any bad stuff in the tribe, as it were, of rotten flesh. So there's intelligence in these ants, you know. Isn't that a miracle? And we just see them crawling around, and we go, where's the hot water? They're in my house, you know, I've got to kill them all. I felt guilty after I learned all that with him for a while. I tell you, if I had to kill ants, yeah.
Well, that's why I keep saying about the miracle being that we.
Oh, you got loud again.
Yeah, I know. I just got the problem.
Oh, okay.
But no, we do take miracles for granted, and that's what, just like we take life for granted, we take our relationships for granted, we take our friends for granted, and when we start doing that, we don't ever see what we have right in front of us.
You know, it's not just that. I mean, Socrates was ahead of his time in his time. He saw these patterns. And so he was teaching me a lot when I was young, and he also taught me about the dandelion, because we have lots of dandelions in England, and you know, they go to seed and everything, and you blow them. He loves me not stuff, and he's playing with that as a kid, you know. And but one day I was out there on my own, and he suddenly came to me in my head, and I'm looking at the patterns of the way all the petals were symmetrical. Okay, because I was into geometry just from drawing ever since I could draw, and they would be talking to me about the cosmos and the universe, and I didn't have all those words. It was the sky. The sky is big and there's stars up there and that kind of thing, because I was young. But they were teaching me to appreciate everything that was around me, that was in existence. And I tried to do that with my children when I was bringing them up. We'd stop and I'd say, look at this bush. There's these tiny little red flowers. I wonder what they're called. And they look, oh, Mom, I want an ice cream. And I was like, yes, I know you do, darling, but what do you think of this flower? It was very difficult. They didn't have my awareness, and I was trying to bring it out in them. And I realized, that the bottom line was I couldn't make them see the miracle of life. They had to come to it. And Warren, my third son, who was very psychic, I actually closed him down. He wouldn't call things a miracle. He would say, this is practical, this is organized, this is structural, this is everything. And even today, now he's opened up, of course, and doing all that and got kids. He's still that way. And I actually talked to him about the word miracle. And he said, Mum, there's no miracle on this earth right now because we're in a destructive mode. And then he went on about, we did that little show, where he talked about the fracking and how the water's not in the ground and so on. And I realized, just now as he's an adult in his 40s, I'm realizing he's not here to see the miracle. He's here to see what's wrong and bring up his 8 kids to understand they're fixer children. And it's a whole different ball game, because fixer children, they're not looking for the miracle. They're looking for the practical steps. And that worries me a bit. It worries me that they'll go out and want to fix everything, but we will lose that philosophy of surprise in that we appreciate a miracle.
And that's because we fear the unknown. Now, Ted just makes a good point here. We do take miracles for granted, and that is why it is important to stay in gratitude.
Yeah, gratitude is very important to have. I always make a point. I've done that. I don't know. I was around after I came back from my death scenario. I always said to anybody, thank you, I appreciate you. Even if they didn't do anything, they were standing in my aura, in my room or something. I appreciated they were there because something was going on in me that I was learning something. Or I was gifting them maybe, but I was learning something, or they were gifting, who knows what it was. But I always said that. And even today, when I go out and the checkers are doing my grocery, I said, thank you, I appreciate you. And it's important we do that. And there are so many people who don't.
No, they don't, because it's kind of like when we we have a lover or a partner or a husband or wife or whatever, in that type of situation where we can't say the ultimate 4-letter word, which is love. We don't know any higher word outside of I love you. And the stronger phrase here would be I appreciate you. That is much stronger than love itself, because you were appreciating everything about that person or a group of people or whatnot. So when it comes to appreciation, a lot of people don't look down that, because they're thinking that they either be in that circumstances or situation.
And I use it even when it's negative. Do you?
Yeah.
It's like someone's telling me all the stuff that's off the wall as far as I'm concerned. And I'll always begin with, I appreciate your point of view. Can you explain it a little more to me? Because I'm not getting it. I give them room to say whatever, and I listen well. And then when I feel they've come to a point of, well, what do you think? Then I'll tell them. Guess what makes a good counselor, by the way, as well. And I've noticed over the years, I've been with other people who are counselors, and I've seen, like, I know what they need to hear, but they're not listening to me. But you see, there's umbrage, because they're already, I want to take over and I want to tell you what's wrong with you, which is just, the same as if they were in a marriage and telling their husband, they're telling their client, but the client's not ready to hear. So it's like when we do the classes, I'm doing that now. I'm putting all the shows that I've done that are relative in the last year, because I now realize Spirit's given me what I needed to have. So those half-hour shows on that you've put up for me on SoundCloud.com, I'm going to have them, students listen to them, and then I'm going to have them come on as part of the course through the year as a counselor to tell me what they felt, how they understood it, how they worked with it, and their input. Do they want to say more? Because that's going to make them better counselors than just reading textbooks.
Well, the other thing is too, is that, the biggest thing in life, and this has a lot to do with, our upbringing, the environment that we live in, and what we have available at hand to use. And that is we're in a crisis mode where we don't have the ability to properly communicate, or we don't know how to communicate. And so these types of, words of gratitude and love and unity is not there, because we don't have the capacity to do it. The other thing is too, is that a lot of people ask me, what does a psychologist do? One of the biggest jobs that a psychologist does is not necessarily to fix people, but to actually listen.
And that's the key. Listen. Most people don't listen. Especially like if you're a counselor, my hair's annoying me, it's too long. When a person is seeing, I'll go to my Japanese students for a minute. One of my girls, she was a psychologist, and she was working in a hospital, and she was worn out, exhausted herself. And she came to me and she said, I need you to give me something, a miracle kind of thing. She actually used that word, for me to be able to give to these patients. And I said, well, what's going on? So she told me every 10 minutes, that's all she's got is 10 minutes. There's a new patient coming in, because there is that many people are distressed and whatever and so on. And she said, I just have to say to them, how are you today? They say, I'm not. And then I say, well, have you thought about something else? They go, no. And then the time's up, so I give them more medicine to stop them being so depressed. Right. So she asked me, what can I do? And I say, well, number one, you could stop working there, but for her point of view. But I said, what you can do is when they walk in, instead of saying, how do you feel? Because they're already in this mindset of, it's all bad. And so I said to her, when they come in, say, did you have your miracle today? I actually told her to say that. And she said, well, what? I said, just say it. And they'll be like, huh? And then you can say, the miracle is you just walked in my door. Are you ready to change? She used that on every patient. I didn't see her for 3 months because, I come and go to Japan and they're back for the next level of classes and things. So she came back for the next one, and she wasn't up the road. She was on another island, and it cost them a fortune to fly and be there and in my classes. I really appreciated them because teaching them made me grow, as well. So she came back to the class, and I remembered, and I said, did you do it? She said, do it. She said, it's automatic. I can't even think of it. They walk in the door and they, like you said, they can't think. And then I'm able to say to them, you don't need to be depressed. And she got to a point where she was decided she was going to leave the hospital and start her own practice. Because all those people would come in the door when she said, do you have your miracle today? Want to work with her privately. Mm-hmm. And it would never have happened if I hadn't told her that. So there was a miracle that Spirit told me to tell her to say that, right? And there was a miracle that she was telling them to change their point of view. And there was a miracle for her that she's going to have a practice. I call that a supreme miracle in a way. And it's an everyday thing, but we need to appreciate that.
Yeah.
You know, we really need to appreciate that we are all connected and we all want to hear something differently. So change the way you communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And I was just going to say, you know, in that circumstances, having 10 minutes, even for an hour session, all the first thing that comes to your head is, I've got to unload. So you unload. And then by the time you get your hour or your 10 minutes is finished up, you're like, okay, time's up. That's it. But there's no practical solution to even change the way that you think. There's no practical way of going about things, and you're not offering it. So that's why they do go straight for the medications. You know, some of the most simplest mental illnesses, and I'm not talking about ones that are absolutely needed for medication for control purposes only, but I'm talking about the simplest ailments are just mindset. It is all about mindset. It is all about changing the way that you think in order to counteract, to provide that productivity that you need to strive to become something better than you already are.
And you know, sometimes people, I had a client recently, not mentioning anything particular, but the issue was a control issue. And it took a good hour and a half of my channeling, talking, because I was channeling, to this person to get them around the fixed ideas that they had in their mind, to ultimately to listen, to really hear what the spirit guides were saying. And they were heavy with me. And I hate that when they get heavy with me and talking, you know, like, you need to listen, that kind of thing. And I don't like being like that. But in this case, it was necessary, and followed by table work. So 4 hours later, that person finally felt calm, could see the point of having a new point of view in the way dealing with everything. And also the other aspect was to not feel he is Atlas, but rather the people around him have got ideas. Listen, listen, listen. Over and over again, they kept saying. And I yet to follow up and see what's happening. But I came away from that and I thought to myself, because I've done my show as well, that it's a miracle just that I can do this. You know, and I have to watch that. I don't take it for granted because, you know, I've done this for so long, 60 years of my life as a public figure helping people. And before that's a child, so always giving messages. So, you know, it's like something I do, but I have to remind myself I'm part of a team. That's a miracle, that I can be a part of that team and hear them and talk and say and do whatever. And so in the same way, I also say to them, I appreciate you. I think it's very important that we understand that whoever the one is helping us, whether it's an alien, because there's people talking about aliens now, or whether it's an archangel, or whether it's just Auntie Sally who's passed over and come back to help you, you still got to say, I appreciate this connection. I appreciate without you, I can't do what I do.
Exactly.
You know?
The other thing is too is that, and this is real, you know, a deal breaker in many ways, or something that can really be frowned upon, and that is the word pride. And that was what came to my head while you were talking just then. And then of course Laurie just put up a very good comment here. Says it reminds people of the debate, the virus that's going on right now, that debate. And why can't people just do what's right for themselves? Well, the big word here that I'm going to emphasize is pride, because we think that we know what's right, not just for ourselves, but for everybody, which puts us into a state of judgment. And when we think we know, that is when we least don't know. What is that phrase? When we think we know, we really don't.
The more that we know, the less we know.
Yeah, that's it. Something like that.
Well, you know, too, in knowing, 9 times out of 10, the knowing is not knowing. It's guesswork.
Yeah.
You know, people convince themselves ABC, and this is, I do know this, and they stick to it. And then they wonder why they're no further down their road of growth and experiences or whatever. And I had a saying in England, you'd probably know what it is being Aussie, but welly boots.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Wellington boots after Duke of Wellington. He was the one who invented them. But they're basically gum boots over here, I think, what they call them, or something.
Rain boots.
Rain boots or something.
I called them gum boots over here and nobody knew what I was talking about.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, so, you know, what you do is you put these on when you're on a farm or somewhere and you know the rain's come and you're wading in mud. And I remember this happened for all of us. I had the kids with me. I'm not sure if it was 2 or 3 of them, but I didn't have the 4th child, but I had the kids with me, and they had their little welly boots as well, and I had mine on, and we went strolling across this farm, and we all walked into a mud patch. Mm-hmm. And we all went down, and the younger one, it was almost up over his tops of the boots, you know. And they're like, I'm stuck, and they started panicking. And I knew that we could take our feet out of the boots, but we would still leave the boots in the mud because it was like a mire. I suppose it was a mire, you know. And so I said, stand still, all stand still, don't move, don't do anything while I think about this, because I'm thinking I've got to get these 3 kids out of this mud, you know, spot. So we're standing there and I'm looking around and I'm looking to see if there's anything to grab or pull, and there isn't, because it's a field, right? And so I'm standing there, and then out of the blue, way off in the distance, I see someone in a blue sweater. So I'm waving like this. She's waving back, okay, and then she turned away. And I thought, well, she's not going to come nearby. What are we going to do? Next thing you know, the tractor's coming across the field. It's the farmer. He's come to rescue us. Now, that woman did a miracle for me at that moment, because I had no idea how to get those kids and myself out of this mud. And he brought the truck right up, because big wheels and everything, tractor, and lifted the kids out. And then I was able to pick the boots up, because we were all nearby one another, and hand them up to him. And then it was my turn. And I'm trying to get my boots out, because I'm the heaviest, obviously. And he said to me, don't do that. So I said, what am I supposed to do? I can't get it. He said, just stand still. And so I did. And then he said, rock. See, he knew what to do. So I rocked, and my feet were rocking in the mud, and I was making a hole in the mud. See what I'm saying? So that my feet had room to get out and I could climb out. I would never have thought, to me, that was an education in a different way, but that was another miracle. I got saved. You know, people don't realize there's so much knowledge and wisdom in one another through their lifestyle, where they live. And when they share it with someone who doesn't know, to them, the person who's receiving it, it's a miracle.
Yeah, and that in itself, and also, but those people too that are really, you know, there are some people out there that would say, no, that's not right. That's not the correct way of thinking. And they're rigid in the way that they think. And so because of their pride, and that's where that phrase comes along, you're up on your high horse, because you think you know what's right, but you really don't. Ted just said up here in the comments here, I think the cool part of spiritual growth is the recognition of when I am falling into a judgmental state of mind, and analyze why I am thinking that way and working on it from within, because apparently there is something within me that I'm not accepting.
Yeah, that's very true. Most of us, you know, psychologically, we're talking that level of input. We all like to believe that we have all the answers. And when we're the doubting Thomas in we know we don't, we're afraid. And when we're afraid, then we turn to someone else, or to the angels, or whatever it is, a religion, philosophy, and put ourselves in the safe hands of someone, i.e. we've got pulled out by the farmer. And it was like, wow, you know, it saved the day, saved my bones, saved my body, saved my kids, saved everything in my particular situation. taught me never ever run without looking first. You know, there's a lesson, pay attention, because you wouldn't think there was going to be a bog in the middle of the field, right? But apparently the way the farmer had made his land, it all drained down towards the middle, all the water that they have. I don't know why, but he did explain everything drained to the middle of the field. But, you know, going back to 10, what he's saying, you know, soul searching is very valid. But if we don't open up to the voice of the oneness in the form of something, could be a flower that's staring at you, that gives you a message, you know, or it could be, you know, a phone call out the blue that stops you from taking pills when you think you're going to kill yourself. It's a miracle. It's a moment where you get it, that you're in the negative and you need to move over to the positive. So I think that's very important. But I want to roll this into religion for a minute and say what they were putting in my head was a woman holding a rosary. Our Father, Hail Mary, Hail Mary, Hail Mary, Our Father, and going round and round in circles with this thing. They reminded me that I once had a rosary because I was investigating Catholicism and stuff at that time. I was young. And I was sitting there doing this with these beads, and I didn't get anything, you know, which is unusual for me in those days. So I asked the priest, what is this prayer? And then, you know, because I'm just saying, Hail Mary, you know, I found out there were all these different prayers for each bead that nobody was telling me. You know, and it's like, well, why didn't you teach me the prayer? And he said, well, you don't need to know it because you just say Hail Mary and the spirits do it for you. Lazy? Well, I'd say, how can you get a miracle if you're not knowing the essence of what you're praying? And I think that's a very valid, important generally with everyone. We don't know the essence of our being. We don't know the essence of our lessons. We don't know the essence of why our emotions are so strong on something and not on another. We don't bother to think why, what for, when, how, where, etc.
Which is why we become so rigid in our ways and why we get on our high horse whenever something goes wrong or right. It really doesn't matter. And that's why I mentioned that emphasize that word pride, is because we are so stuck in our ways that we really have no way to be curious, or even if we are curious, a way to search, because we just don't know how.
Well, we've got the 7 deadly sins, and that's pride. But, you know, I never saw them as deadly sins because you need, like if I did a painting and I loved it and I put it on the wall and I'm standing there going, wow, that's really pretty, I love it. Why can't I be prideful? I can pat me on the back all I want and say, well done.
That's where I would say that you need to have a healthy pride. You can't have your ego way up here when it needs to be down here in order to appreciate everything that you have right in front of you.
Well, and that's when, sorry, I'm going to interject, sorry, anyone listening, but it's pride. Like if I have done my painting, blah, blah, but then I go away and I look at your painting and I think my painting is better than your painting and you didn't do a brushstroke right or something, then pride is taken over in the negative. That's the way I see it. How do you see it?
It's almost superiority. Yeah, it is in the negative. Like for instance, I personally have been told, oh no, I talk about my work too much. Well, unfortunately, my work is my life pretty much. And I can't get out of that because I am practicing what I preach. But at the same time, I'm also very prideful about my accomplishments, which doesn't make me any better or any worse off than the next person in front of me. I've always said to people, you can tell me about your life, no problem. But don't ever think that you are superior because of the things that you've been through. And it's not in comparison to what I've been through. It is that it's basically saying politely that your story is no special than my story. We are all equal and we are all the same.
Yeah.
Just have different experiences is all.
Yeah, I think in terms of judgment now, we'll go there. when there's a lot of people have opinions that become very judgmental, the creative self, the inspirational self, the part of self that can reach out to expect a miracle, whatever it may be in some way, or ask for it, whatever, it doesn't, I feel it in my throat here. It doesn't satisfy, when they're talking or doing something and going on about whatever it is they've done and the trial and efforts and the whole thing, it doesn't leave any room for any part of themselves to stop and ask a question of self. Why am I doing this to myself?
Mm-hmm.
I think people have to learn to say, why am I being negative about this? Why aren't I switching it over and saying, well, it is a negative scenario, but this shows me a point of view that there must be an alternative. Let me go in a quest to find the alternative, rather than, well, I just have to keep validating the thing I'm doing that isn't working, and then saying there's never a miracle, nobody cares about me, and so on. So going back to religion and, all the religions of the world, the bottom line I see it is anyone who's a minister, and I am a minister, you're a minister, is told in the early learning years, you have to help people forgive themselves. And yet when you go to a religious thing like, some event, it's the priest who's telling them that he forgives them. On behalf of God or something. Right? They're not, I've watched quite a few shows like that over the years in churches and synagogues and wherever. And it's always the people are expecting the priest or whatever they are, guru in India, for example, that they are going to forgive them, that they're going to sort their problem out, that they're going to make it better. And if you ask the people, why don't you see yourself as a godlike being that can manifest the changes, they'll look at you and say, I don't deserve it.
And well, see, here's the thing. And you've said it a couple of times now, even I've said it a couple of times already. And that is the word expectation. We expect that this is going to happen so that we alleviate ourselves or absolve ourselves from whatever has happened, because we're looking for an easy way out.
And yet,
miracle that comes.
Yeah, but also when they do find a way out, then they're condemned by all those they're leaving, which makes them feel, it doesn't feel like a miracle that they're getting freedom, right?
But we don't know what freedom is unless we explore it. And that's why life is an adventure. Life is not just a miracle, but it's also the miracle of adventure, which is where we go into the unknown places. I love the off-beaten track. I absolutely adore it. I do. You will never find me in somewhere that is quote unquote mainstream at all. I am so out there, it's not funny. And, I choose not to go down that quote unquote mainstream route. And I'm not talking about news or anything like that. I'm just saying mainstream in general, because I find no satisfaction in it. There is so much to learn that and grow from and to experience that I'd rather get lost.
Well, it's like, for me and you in our profession, metaphysical studies and all the rest of it, there are 1,001 billion people out there who are psychic, and everyone has their idea about how psychics should teach and whatever. And I'm just using the word psychic, never mind medicine and all the rest of it. And so all those people come out with, you see them up on the web all the time. Today is a something moon or something is, and I don't even know these things. I've got to be honest, I'm not up on reading all the news of everybody and everything they're doing, because I'm just listening to powers that be, because they told me when I was a kid, don't read anybody's work, don't do anything, we are going to teach you all the way through, and they have. So I'm in my space and I have my way of teaching, and it's very frustrating because I don't fit any pattern, so nobody knows who I am. They really don't know who I am, because they think I'm going to come in and say I'm a reader, I read runes and tarot, or I'm a healer, I do only aromatherapy. Or, I don't. I do everything, and I do it my style, my way, and teach it my style, my way. And then whoever gets it goes off and does it with their style, their way. And that's how it should be, because I teach them to do that. But I'm going to give you an example where back in 10 years ago, there was someone with a course. I won't say much more about that. And they went over to Japan to teach it, and they made every student sign a paper saying that they would teach it exactly the way they wanted it taught. All right. And the particular therapy was narrow like this. And they came to me because they were studying my classes, which do this, but and they were really upset because they've been told that if they've done this class, they have to sign this piece of paper that says they will only do that person's work. And so that meant they couldn't come into my class. So they come into me and say, I don't know what to do, blah, blah, blah. And I said,
I can give you the shirt off of my back, but is it going to fit?
Exactly. And I had my way of saying, because they're in Japan, I said to them, no one has the right to tell you how you take your training and use it. Even if you work in a hospital, the doctors are always fighting the powers that be that run the hospital, because someone at the top saying, you can't do that. You have to run it by this and run it by that. Why? Because of insurance. Why? Because there's no money. Why? There's always that rubbish behind anyone who's trying to help someone. And I think it's a very important thing that we realize that one of the miracles we need is to stop having people at the top controlling us and preventing us from rising up and doing things the right way. And then when they're at the top, they'll know the right way. They'll organize the hospital, whatever it is, in such a way that you can go and get your help without fighting the system.
Well, it's funny you should actually say that, because my business that I have for Soma Fusion Media and Soma Fusion Mind, Body and Soul, especially for in my actual business biography that I have, I've actually literally written up there, and I'll read it word for word, that I'm a media production and book publishing company that explores the biggest names in the industries, the frontiers of consciousness, spirituality, personal growth, emerging paradigms in psychology, health, and various sciences and innovative philosophies that reflect the commitment to advancement of the individual, social, and global awareness. People will discover that there are no rules to follow or methods to learn. Being in the moment can transform even an ordinary circumstance into a profoundly moving catalyst while still living in the moment. And so that you make a very good point there, is that we are, like I said, we are so rigid in the ways that we learn that we find ourselves stuck, so rigid and because when we're fearing the unknown, we are fearing the way what we're being taught. Is it right or wrong? We assume that it's right, but then we find out it's wrong, and so we close ourselves down even more. And so and our curious streak to life becomes obsolete in a way. And so we lose that miracle and wonder, go straight back to your imagination. We lose that imagination because we doubt ourselves.
Well, because I was so much in Japan for so many years, and with a culture that was so stilted and restricted, I saw them coming from this to this over the years, a joy of discovering they could break out of the mold. But one thing I knew, and my students knew, is that I never teach the same way, because when the students come, there's a different group and they got different energy. And so I adapt, because I've got spirit with me anyway. I adapt to the circumstances of that group of students. Well, one day I started to notice a lot of my students would come back. They were allowed to do refresher course, meaning if they didn't get it, they could come in and do one day a particular part that they felt they needed to refresh. And so they were coming and going. These are already qualified students, but they just come back and be there in the room for that one day and get involved and share and do whatever the exercises were, that kind of thing. And after a while, I realized that they were coming frequently, and I thought maybe I'm not teaching well or something, you know. So I asked them to stay behind and tell me why they were coming so often. There was about 6 of them. And they immediately said, oh, we love to listen to you because you never say the same thing in the same way. And that gives us a different point of view on what we've learned the time before. And without listening to you saying things in different ways, we wouldn't be as good as we are.
Well, that's
and I wanted to say, I'm not looking for praise and glory here for me. It was a lesson for me that these people would study with me, was showing me a miracle that they were going to take my work and make it more.
Yeah, and that's what I've always said about my work. I've had people, they're like, I've got a block, I don't know what to write about, and I'm like, okay, well, find some inspiration. I don't take my work, use my work as inspiration, make it better, because at the end of the day, I know that I don't know everything, and I know that other people out there that are better than me, and it doesn't really bother me one little bit. I also know too that in terms of meta studies, anything with the word meta in there is going below the surface to seek the answers, or to find the answers to the unknown. And that is the whole, it's the evolution period that we go through, that when we seek to find the answers and we seek to find the truth in all things, then we can divert and see the miracle that we have, that we can take on a new experience to learn. And we have that vast openness that we can, and that's the whole point of being a human being, is to learn and grow outside of all the other stuff that we have to go through in terms of healing. We need to learn to be more open.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the bottom line is, most people, if they want to step out, like let's put it into a working scenario, an office, just a scenario. If they're working on a computer and they're doing same old, whatever, and then they suddenly have an idea, well, if I change this and I had a different program and I did something, and I go to the boss and I say, can I buy a new program? And the boss says, no, we can't afford it. Does that person stay there and carry on doing the same old, or do they look at themselves and go, I've outgrown this scenario, I've gone beyond this, I'm giving myself permission to seek a miracle of looking outward into the world to find something better for me? Well, most people don't. They just stay there and I need the money, they don't look for the miracle of the change.
Yeah, because they're not looking for the practical solution to their problems.
Well, I don't think it's even a practical solution, because you don't necessarily know it. You just get to a point where same old, and you're thinking, I need the money, I have to pay the bills. But what you don't realize is the minute you surrender to the idea, I can leave this business, you're already creating a miracle of something out there you're going to bump into it, or it's going to bump into you. And it may be so totally different that you at first may be bulky and going, oh my God, I don't know if I could do that. But there's something in the heart, something in the soul that says, have a go. And you do. And then it works. And then you're going, my God, why didn't I do this before?
Yeah, but at the same time too, a lot of people out there that are in that position, they see themselves instantly. It's like instant gratification. I'm a failure because I can't do what I need to do in order to succeed. And so by having that open mindset of openness, we can trial and fail is not a disgrace. And so you can only grow from that.
But while they're having their negative, scenarios going backwards and forwards in their brain across the conscious and subconscious, and digging into deep subconscious, occasionally saying, I really should get another job, but then pushing it away. The bottom line is ultimately that we come to a point of so much self-destruction, so demoralized, so low, so miserable, so depressed, that we can't see the wood for the trees, as it were. Mm-hmm. And I think it takes a miracle of change of consciousness, literally, like I know I'm coming to mind because many experiences I've seen throughout my life, there was someone who literally was knocked unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
And after they came to, they were different. I mean, I was amazed. There was a man. He was running backwards. I did the same thing. I was running backwards into a tree when I was a kid, and I was blind for 5 hours. And I was not scared. I didn't feel I was going to be blind forever or anything. And in fact, I used it, and later I walked to school with my eyes shut. So, you know, and prove to myself using psychometry, just like a real blind person would do, that I could do it. To me, that was a miracle for me to have that experience. But for this man, he was, I don't know what he was doing, but he was doing something. He banged the back of his head, and they took him off to hospital, which is how I came to know him. And when he was unconscious for several days, and when he woke up, he was different. I mean, his wife said, he's so different. He's nice. He used to be aggressive and horrible. Now he's nice and sweet and cute. So sometimes a miracle happens through an accident, or, you know, where the brain is jolted and they have a whole different perception of themselves. So I think that people don't realize just what a miracle is. And I guess I want to say a miracle is the unexpected. Well, surprises you.
That's exactly, you know, we can explain many events, even miraculous ones. But then again, a good mind can explain away anything, obviously, in terms of miracles. But just as you have choice in everything that you do, you can use your mind to either seek out of the miracle in life or deny them.
Mm.
And only you will know the degree of the sincerity in which you are trying to understand your life and instill it with meaning.
What do you think about, I'm going to go into a bizarre area now. What do you think about people who, these churches where they have poisonous snakes all over them? And I've got to tell you, there's no way I'll be looking for a miracle if I had snakes crawling, you know, poisonous. But there was one gentleman I watched a show years ago. I was like stunned. He was bragging he'd been bitten by this viper umpteen times, like 20, 40 times, some ridiculous number. And he'd never had serum or venom or anything. So all I could assume was his body had assimilated the first bite and he developed antibodies. I was just trying to rationalize why he's not dead, you know. And it actually, while he was talking about being bitten, it actually bit him on camera, and he didn't pass out. He just carried on talking, and, you know, he was a minister of the group. And I'm sitting there watching this on the TV, and I'm thinking, is this mind over matter, or is there a miracle in him somewhere? You know, I couldn't fathom that. I got no answer from spirit, but it made me think. And there are a lot of people who believe that kind of thing. What would you say and do if you were in that situation? I'd leave.
Well, what TV show are you watching?
Oh, it was years ago. It was one of those videos on YouTube or somewhere, you know.
And two, what in the world? I've never heard of a church like that.
Oh, they're in the South. They're in the South where they believe all that stuff.
I'm not surprised by any of the information that you just brought forth. However, there are some really, really weird stuff out there, and you know, I've seen and heard a lot, especially when you can go. The world of online research is great fun. But no, I honestly, I wonder, because that's a video, I wonder whether that minister, or call it what you will.
Oh, it bit him, and you could see the fangs come out. And
I wonder,
he just carried on, you know, he didn't collapse.
Behind the scenes of TV, we really don't know whether they have already given themselves venom before they even film it.
But see, that's a suspicion. What you're doing now is bring out suspicion. You can't have a miracle. And I had lots of suspicion when I watched that show. It was like an hour or half an hour, I don't know, but it was long enough to watch it. I watched it. And Steve was alive then in those days, so it was a while ago. Probably before YouTube really got famous. So it was on TV, it wasn't on YouTube, but I'm saying it was on TV. We were watching it on the television, but it was probably one of those public access things or something like that, that people could make in those days, like I used to have my show. By the way, I've got to get that show up again.
We'll work on that. We'll talk about
psychic chit chat, everyone, in case you're listening.
Yes, there is already. I'm actually going to put them up on the Soma Fusion channel as well for people that want to watch that. Margaret did a show called Psychic Chit Chat on the PBS. Was it PBS News?
Yeah, public access.
Yeah, public access. And there are 50 shows, if I remember correctly.
47, be exact. 47.
Yeah, 47. So I'm going to have to, because of the
It's going to take a long time, so don't rush.
Yeah, I think the first 6 shows are up there. I'm just going to transfer them over to my channel because there's a lot more people going to my channel to look at the archives that are up there. But it also is, the first 6 are already up on Margaret's channel, which is Margaret Rogers Van Coops. If you go look it up, you're going to see it. I will say though, in terms of suspicion though, that is only natural that we have suspicion in terms of trying to figure out whether we are determining whether it's a miracle or not. But that's the level of curiosity. If we didn't have suspicion, we wouldn't be curious about the miracle in the first place.
Well, I was just wondering if there's anybody out there watching who has actually heard of these churches where they do these kinds of things. There was another one I heard tell. I didn't actually watch this or see it or anything, but there was a bloodletting group they used to that somebody told me about, where they would do the cunning and rub their hands together and expect a miracle by rubbing their hands with someone else. And they were saying that whoever that person was there watching it, that miracles did happen. People were getting better who were sick and stuff like that. And I'm standing there thinking, rubbing blood together from 2 separate people, and it was in a time when AIDS was around.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting there with all that knowledge. I'm thinking, what are we doing? But I wasn't watching it. She was telling me, and I'm speaking and saying, but that's so dangerous with AIDS around and everything, because it was early days of that. And body fluids is the one thing you're not supposed to mix, and they're mixing blood. And I'm thinking, but this person was adamant that she saw people that couldn't walking and stuff like that. What do you think about those kind of things? Do you think they really are miracles, or do you think they're plants and they're not really? Because I saw a movie like that where they had this person in the wheelchair and everything, and it turned out they moved from city to city under a tent. And that person was nothing wrong with her. She was a plant. She was saying, oh, I can't walk, I can't, and everybody thought, and then he'd go do his thing and she'd stand up and walk. So I was wondering, do you think these people are conning us, or do you think they are having a miracle? What do you think? Let's hear what you think.
I'm really not sure. There are miraculous things that happen. I mean, you're talking about if you was to compare it to Lazarus, hell, anything could have happened. But if you were having a caution of suspicion, you'd be like, well, are they really in a wheelchair, or are they just incapacitated to mildly to the point whether they can actually get out of their chair? Who knows? I did actually just Google it too, because I have a second screen here. So, but what religion still uses snakes in worship? Pentecostal.
Okay, that's right.
And the guy that you're talking about, his name is Jimmy Morrow. He was the pastor of Edwina Church of God in Christ's Name in Newport, Tennessee.
Is he still here?
I have no idea. I'll find that out too.
Because it was a while back. I mean, I'm not talking like last year. I'm talking years. And I don't know if it was him literally that you found that one, but yeah, they've been doing that. And going back to the miracles, I have to admit, there was one time when a woman came to me in a wheelchair. I was doing a public thing at one of the Mind, Body, Spirit events in England. And she couldn't stand. And I just did the laying of hands. I didn't even do my crystal work or anything. I just put my hands on her like I did when I was a child. And she said she got this cold chill all through her and then very hot. And I'm just saying, yes, well, it's healing, you know. I'm just doing my thing. And then she said, I want to stand up. Well, we knew she could get out of the chair. Obviously, she could stand. But she not only stood up, she walked around the room. She said, I haven't walked around the room in something like 5 years or something. Mm-hmm. So to her, that was a miracle. To me, I'm thinking, okay, Spirit's working with me, so there's a miracle going on. But how much was it in her mind that she didn't want to walk? Because I was still, you know, still in psychology. I'm in the 70s, 1970s. You know, I'm still thinking psychology and psychiatry and all that, you know. So I didn't call it a miracle, but she did. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if she went back into, you know, she pushed the chair out the room and she didn't get it.
It's kind of why I sit on the fence in a lot of things as well. It's not saying that I don't believe. It's just that I do sit on because I have a very, very high high level of caution to a lot of things. And not only that, I want to be unbiased as well. So I'm trying to see for it. I'm a meta psychoanalyst. That's what I do. However, so I go from being metaphysical to literally going into psychology to actually going into science. So, I mean, I had a conversation recently with somebody that said, oh, hang on. They mentioned something and I said, oh, which way do you want me to go? You want me to go science? I can go completely metaphysical, which is, there's two sides.
There's always is. And I have to admit today, because, you know, obviously I was in my 30s in those days. And now I'm double that, more than that. So I've had a lot of experiences in my healing skills with Spirit. And if I was to put my hands on someone today and they got out of a wheelchair and walked, I would say that was a miracle. The oneness wanted it, or she wanted it with the oneness. It's got to be a unity and a harmony somewhere between me, her, and the oneness for that miracle to happen. But it doesn't mean it'll last. I had one person I was working on a couple of 4 years ago now. She had MS, and I did it's more than that, maybe for like 7 years. I had her on the table. I worked on her for a couple of hours doing all the things I do. She got off the table and she said, I can't believe it. I can walk, I can do anything and everything. She's bending, stretching, she's no pain, nothing. I'm not shaking, I'm not anything. And she said, this is a miracle. And I looked at her and I said, it's a miracle if you allow it to be one and you let yourself change. If you don't change, everything will come back. She called me up 2 days later. She said, it's all back. I said, well, you haven't changed. So was that a miracle? But, you know, it was a miracle in her mind, but she wasn't ready to change. And that's a big point I want people to hear, that you can receive it, but if you don't embrace it and change this brain box of yours and your heart to embrace the love divine and the love wisdom divine, you're going to bring back all the symptoms you had before, because those are the symptoms of your unrest, of your non-belief, of your fixed ideas that you cannot have or do or ever be something in some way. And if it's still there, no matter how much God himself appeared and did his thing, if you're 2 days later, 3 days actually is the thing they usually say where it goes wrong. You rise from the dead or you die, kind of thing. Whatever you believe, but it's a miracle in the eyes of the beholder. And maybe, making someone walk for, like that woman with the wheelchair was, there were plenty of people watching, was not for her, but for other people who were watching, who needed to know that healers could do stuff.
Well, the other thing is too is that it's almost like attention seeking for entertainment. Just a quick one though. Jimmy Morrow, the pastor that you were seeing in the video, is in fact truly well and truly alive. We just started a little talk topic right now because they're like, Pentecostal do what? I will say there are estimated 125 churches in the United States who use poisonous snakes in their services to this very day. Many of them are clustered in the South. And believe it or not, they use them, especially they use the handling of snakes to prove their faith in God. Now, I will say that if you go do a quick Google search, you're going to find that there is a church, a Pentecostal church in West Virginia, that handles serpents, so to speak, snakes, where devotees risk their lives by holding these poisonous rattlesnakes and then drinking their deadly poison.
That may be the one I watched, because I know it was like that, and it was a while back that I watched it, but it's not recent. I mean, it has to be 5 years at least when I saw it.
Yeah, and not only that, I mean, they've tried to demystify it in a way, but this has been going on for hundreds of years, and it's usually generally very secretive. That's why when I first heard of it, and I literally just did a quick Google search, right, like while you were talking, and I'm like, oh shoot. I knew that there were I kind of see them as in a way cult secrets, secret societies in a way within churches that are hidden away, and there are many practices. I mean, just look at Catholicism for one. And so we're never going to know about it until people actually come out and have who have had previously these experiences, if they're not already dead, and tell the world that this is actually what we're practicing. And majority of us are going to look at it like, what the hell?
Well, I'm going to take you in another direction now. What do you think about people who say that they had surgeries, they came out of body, they watched their surgery, they died, and then they came back and they changed? Now, I did that. I didn't have surgery, but I mean, I was out of body and I couldn't get back. I was a male back in the 1600s on an island with all these women. I was having a good time. And all of a sudden I had to go back. And so I guess I was in a past life or something. And I just got up without even thinking from where I was sitting and ran down the beach and on the water. I was running on the water, and I couldn't get back into my time zone. And I'm yelling out to spirit, help me, help me. And I literally felt a shove in my back. And then I was back in my body. And to me, that was a miracle, because I couldn't have come back. Well, after they took me outside, and I'm not bored with what was going on. It's to do with my womanly parts. They were saying, open your eyes, because I'm in such pain because they've been cutting my front. And I'm like, I can't open my eyes. I'm trying to, and she says, open your eyes. And all I could say is, I was bleeding to death, wasn't I? And she's not supposed to say anything because she was a nurse. And she said, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, oh, give me something very terrible. She said, open your eyes. And it was like, trying to open them. I finally got them tiddly bit open so she could give me the morphine, you know. Oh, that was so good. Took all the pain away. But that was a death scenario that I went through. And they would never have told me. And if it wasn't for the fact that I was out of body and I was a medium and so on, I probably would have never known. So I'm wondering how many people are on the table have surgeries and they lose them and they bring them back. That is, to me, when they bring them back, that's a miracle. Because in the old days, you'd be gone.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't be able to do the surgery anyway, probably. But you know, but that was a miracle for me. That whatever they did to stop me hemorrhaging, was important.
I've had out of body experiences as well. However, because I have had now, it's like looking at yourself in a way, and seeing your life from a different perspective. And when you do come back into your own body, you start to have it's almost like an instant mindset change. I will say, I just commented up there on the chat there. There's a lot about, you know, what we're just talking about, snake handling in Pentecost.
I thought people would jump on that because it's so like, oh my God, most people are scared to
I just commented in there and said there's a lot of things in religions that we do not know, but however, we take instant gratification that it is what it is. Whatever they're telling us is real without even questioning it. And that is the problem that we have in terms of religion. And for me, I'm not religious at all. And so, you know, that's why I kind of sit on the fence and everything. Like I said, I can go complete spiritual, religious, what you will, and take in the information, but then I can go complete science. So
whatever way we look at it, the ultimate thing is the person in the case of snakes really believes. And when you say really believes, I'm now going to talk about the energy of one of the 12 of disciples who was bitten by an asp, and you know they're deadly. And all the followers were very scared. And he said, leave me alone. And he went into the little tenty thing, whatever they had, and for 3 days, just like Jesus, 3 days, you know, rising. Went in there, and everybody's wanting to go and check, and he's not allowing it. So nobody's allowed to go nearby. So all on guard around and about and praying. And on 3 days it came out. He was not dead. He was very much alive. Now, what I thought when I was learning that from spirit, but it's not in the Bible or anything, that this happened to that particular one, that the brain is able, remember, first of all, I have to say, we only use 6% of our brain. All right. So that other part that we don't know anything about has the ability in there to suss out what's wrong, sort out the poison in this situation, excrete it through the skin, because there was a lot of smelling and washing and bathing after. Okay, so all that poison came through his pores and out, and he was fine, and he recovered. And so that was an absolute miracle at that time. All the followers like, there's a miracle, it's a miracle. But was it? Because there's so much in this brain that we don't know about yet. And now look what's happened over the last 10 years with the DNA and RNA. And I'm hot on this. I'm always learning, because I've got A, spirit guys in my head teaching me about this for years, and B, I want to hear what other people are saying. So I watch what people are saying. And the whole thing about the DNA and the RNA, and looking at the strands and how they're separated, and telomeres and all this stuff, is very interesting to me. So I'm finding myself thinking how much of a miracle is actually the brain itself is the miracle, because it knows what to do to keep this body alive and healthy.
And it's probably one of the most sophisticated piece of hardware that we actually have in our human body, because you know, neuroscience is one of the only fields, well, I can't say that's one of the only fields, but probably single
major ones, one of the major researches going on at this time,
that is constantly evolving. I know for a fact, because of what I do, I'm constantly reading white papers to see what is out there, new different techniques and new ways of going about the brain, its anatomy and everything else there, because the brain is what controls everything. The brain is what allows us to function our daily lives. And when our brain is not functioning, then we're at a loss. That's why people who have dementia and Alzheimer's, they have to do those brain puzzles in order to keep their mind stimulated. If you are not stimulating your mind in any way, you lose those other faculties that we have. And
I agree.
The other thing is too is that it's actually not 6%, it's 9%, and they've actually squashed that myth. We actually use 100% of our brain. We just don't know how to use it to such a capacity where we can expand our thinking, because we're so limited in the way that we think, because we've been taught through ideologies and through our upbringings and everything else that we involve ourselves, so external environment. And so when we take that all on in terms of our DNA, we change. I could also go into the fact that, you know, when women absorb the DNA of men, every man that a woman has slept with, they automatically absorb that DNA. Therefore, every time we change our molecular structure within our body, and that includes brain DNA. It doesn't matter which way we look at things, no matter how, the more we intermingle and interconnect with each other, the more our DNA and our DNA structures change, not just within our brain, but also within our body.
Well, the bottom line about the brain is that it needs a lot of blood and sugar up there to make it work. You know, you know, if you don't have the right fluids up there, then you get doolally a bit, you know. And I know I was eating way too much sugar, and I told you I kept losing words. But there are herbs and things that we can take, like I'm taking Dong Quai. And I noticed within just 2 days of taking the pills, I'm getting smart again. I'm remembering my words, you know. But stress, you know, I wanted to go there. Stress is one of the biggest hang-ups for us all, in terms of when we're so weighed down with issues and problems. You know, post-traumatic stress disorder, no matter how it comes, where it comes from, the brain can't function productively. And we can't even think about the idea of a miracle. So, you know, it's like running Word Perfect on top of Word. If we use, you know, computers as an example, it's not going to work, you know, because it's out of date. So all these people who are running these ideas like snakes we were talking about, and, you know, whatever, it's history. It's only a matter of time before the new youngsters growing up who are very psychic are going to say, we're not doing that anymore. You know, we're not going to follow it.
There are a lot of people still there that are looking for the alternative now, because they can't stand mainstream religion. So they're running to very, very much. I'm going to put Islam aside, but a lot of young ones are looking for that unity, that feeling of unity. They want to work within a community. They want to, and usually what it's doing is it's adopting Eastern philosophy and theology into their everyday lives. And I'm not pinpointing Eastern philosophy, but it's something that a lot of people that I have met, especially when they're going through their spiritual awakening, when they're trying to explain exactly what they're going through, it is what they don't realize is that they're actually talking majority, without, you know, going all Christian, they're actually talking about Eastern philosophy.
My light's gone off. No, the bottom line, you know, in my opinion, with any religion or philosophy, and you mentioned putting Muhammad on the side. Of course, you know, I've channeled Muhammad as well on and off for my life. Is that better? Yeah, that's better. I felt like I was getting in the dark ages.
The only reason why I did that is, and I don't, there's no...
No, but I had something to say, I wanted to say about that. If you read the Quran, and I have years ago, and I've been listening, because I do the professor courses, you want to hear what everybody else is doing, so I've been listening to that too. And all the way through everything I've ever learned and read is that Muhammad never set himself up to do anything but make the Muslims think before they act. Every part of it is about, like, was Mary a virgin? Did she really have a baby that way? Was there interference? You know, the whole of the Quran is all about question, question, question. And And I understand why so many are in separation over there, because they all have different ideas about the Quran in the way that because he deliberately said it's up to the individual to have their own point of view. And even their great scholars still argue over what this exactly means.
Yeah.
Whereas the Christian Bible, it just says, this is the fact. But Muhammad, he came much later. So he was taking all the different religions and saying within the text, what do you think? What do you feel? What do you mean? And until they sort that out, they're going to be fighting forever.
That's the thing is that there's a lot of I've written pieces that are very Sufi in creating, and I do one thing I will say is that Sufism is like writing riddles, and you having to go on a quest to figure out what the answer to the riddle is. But if you don't know what you're looking for, especially if you're a beginner, if you don't know what you're looking for, then you would never understand Sufism whatsoever.
Well, Sufism is really the metaphysical side of their religion, and the whirling dervishes and all that kind of thing. I had some good fun doing that, actually, swirling around. But the bottom line here is that religion for the Piscean age has told us what to think and feel and do. And the Aquarian age is giving us permission to think for ourselves. We're not got someone, it's like even the teaching. I mean, when I was young, you came in and open books at such and such a page. Mary, you read this chapter, so you read this chapter, and do this. And okay, the bell's gone off, all leave now. Then when my kids were at school, it was more about, why are you reading this book? What's the point of this book? Go home and read it on your own and then write something. Now the kids are like, I don't want to read the book. I want to see it on a movie. So, learning has changed so much. And I'm worried for these kids of the future that they're not going to learn to read. They're not going to listen. They'll listen, because that's it. The Aquarian age is about listen, but they need to read.
Yeah, but see that, and that's where we dumb it down a little bit, because a lot of people out there are looking for the visual connect, when you're never going to learn anything visually. Well, I'm not going to say that you aren't, but not properly in such a way where we can read and write and investigate. These are just basic principles to critical thinking. When we're not researching the text, it doesn't matter whether you believe in the text or not, at least you're actually reading and absorbing that information in. Taking the easy way out is literally looking for that visual gratification to learn. Like I said, you're never going to expand your thinking if you're constantly looking at something and getting entertainment from it. It doesn't. And then after that, once you do find the curiosity that sparks, how many of those people after reading is actually writing down the keywords or things that can be further investigated to learn even more?
You're right. The depth of learning is all about the inquiring mind. And if that person is taught right in the beginning that there's more information, go to the library, and you've got a foundation stone of parents that are doing that kind of thing, then the kids, they get used to the idea of learning. And I've got patients and students who will come and they'll surprise me because they've read everything I've written. And I'm like, really? I can't even remember what I wrote. I'm saying I have to go read them. But, the bottom line is, it gives us time out when you read a book, to be on your own space and process. And that nobody's processing right now. It's all hearsay.
Well, that's exactly right. And I was just going to say that a practical form of evolving is to actually write things down. And that could be a thought process of being just as practical as journaling.
And you know, when you're writing, you could be getting a miracle in your consciousness that changes your point of view. It happened to me many times because I'm channeling. And I'd write, because when you're channeling, you just write. This is the books. You don't think about it. You just write it. It's all, you're very knowledgeable what you're writing. But you go back and read it afterwards and you go, oh, I've got to really process that. I really think about it. It's brilliant, but do I really understand it?
Yeah, I do it all the time. So
yeah, I know we both channel, right? So it is why we get on so well. So what is your miracle today? What do you got up? What did you have a miracle of today for you?
I'm breathing. With all the things that I'm going through right now, I'm breathing.
I asked that for a reason, because we know you're not being too well.
Yeah, no, for those who don't know, I have health problems right now that requires eventual surgery, which will actually alleviate the health problems that started in the first place. So yeah, I'm going through a lot right now. And of course that goes into changing my literally within 24 hours after diagnosis, I literally had to shake up my entire lifestyle, the way, everything that I was eating, everything that I was drinking, every bit of physical exercise. And this is not in prep for surgery whatsoever. This is literally an entire lifestyle change, because the health problems that I have to endure could possibly stick around for the rest of my life. So
it's not. I know it's not. So take comfort in that. But
yeah,
but don't have that consciousness. You see, if you're saying this could be around for the rest of my life, you're blocking a miracle of not having it for the rest of your life. I didn't
finish my sentence then too, but it enabled the miracle of healing to happen.
Yeah, it did. It brought to light something else. I mean, we don't want to put all your washing on the line, but the bottom line is that there are negative things that happen that lead to a miracle. That if we didn't have the negative, we wouldn't find the miracle. And you're right. My miracle for today was that I got Henry. My dog. He's got a sore, and I went to dress that wound again today, and he actually said to me, "No." He didn't voice no, but he went and jumped down where he normally would sit there and put it out and do it. It was like, leave it alone. And I thought, he knows when it needs dressing. That was a little miracle I saw my dog showed me. And I think it's important that we realize, we've been talking about humans all this time, but animals do miracles all the time. Like you've got someone who's got a bad heart, and they can sit and listen and hear the heartbeat and know when that person's about to have something happen, and then run around and get help. They're trained to do that, right? But isn't that a miracle that their consciousness can understand the training and do it and save someone's life? I think it's a miracle.
I think it is.
Yeah.
But like I said, miracles are found in the unknown, the unknown miraculous things that occur every single day. We just don't see it because we're not open. I'm not saying that we are not open to it. We just don't.
Generally, we're too busy to be open to it. Let's put it that way.
That's exactly right. So there you go.
Yeah.
But when you finally realize that the world around you is experiencing miracles within miracles, there is a revolution within, and it is time to acknowledge that the world is hurtling towards towards redemption. And that, just remember, we all have to remember here that it is your choice and your choice alone whether you want to be a part of it.
Well, another thing is there's so many different points of view. We won't analyze this now, but there's so many different points of view on what exactly redemption is. from hell, doom and gloom, you're going to be burning in hell, to you just be turned away at the gate, to you're going to be left on the earth when the flood comes, and you're going to suffer, and the volcano's going to eat you up with lava. I mean, I've heard so many negative things about the changes that are happening, but yeah, the world is changing. Our earth is shifting. Our the core magma, is moving, and so we're seeing this change. And yes, a lot of us are passing over because we don't need so many of us down here right now, and they've learned their lesson and they're up there doing whatever, and we're down here going, okay, I hope you're safe, but we're getting on with the world, and we're getting on with life, and that's important. And I think the ultimate miracle is when we all stop arguing and start agreeing. Listening, yeah, but not just agreeing, but doing together.
Yeah.
In this country, you're talking about building the infrastructure, but actually it's every country in the world needs the infrastructure amended, changed. There isn't one country that isn't up in umbrage right now. And it's needs there. So that umbrage is actually, in my books, a miracle. It's there for a reason, to stop us carrying on in the same old way, the same old reason, the same old purpose. Money, money, money. Okay. And now it's here for us to realize our life force, our energy is vital, that we take care of it and we look after ourselves and our little ones and so on. And we don't take everything, in the world around us, that someone else has to give it to us. We take responsibility for our part in the drama and do what we have to do, instead of sit there and moan and groan that nobody loves you, nobody cares about you. We get on with living.
Exactly. And that's what I was just going to come up with a valid point here. For those who are listening, what would you do? Can you, I've said this before in a previous show about what would you say to yourself if you could marry yourself?
That's a cool one. I never thought of that.
Yeah, humanity would never change. I'll post it back up there. I did do a write up on it too, not just on a previous show. But if you could marry yourself, that means that you could change the world within yourself from within. Now, you can't change humanity unless you're working on yourself. So, and that is an evolving process. You can't, and it's not an overnight thing either. You constantly need to strive for that to get to the end goal, whatever the end goal may be. And the end goal does not finish until your last dying breath.
Right. Well, for me, my whole life has been about transforming myself. And I love to do it. I enjoy doing it. So every night when I go to bed, the first thing I do, in case anybody needs to do it too, is I let go of today. So I'm lying there and I'm thinking, not this is bad or this is bad, good. I'm just thinking I have moved energy all day. So any energy I don't need, I send out through my feet to the ground. And any more energy that I place, I'm receiving it from the oneness. And so I'm laying there and I'm allowing myself to rebalance my energies in my 5 bodies, in my aura. And then sometimes I put my teragrams on me, throat, third eye, and heart, and so on down. And I'll consciously work with spinning them and working and building them up so I get stronger. But other times I just lay there and I just close them down and go to sleep, but I am always a work in progress. I will never stop working on myself. And when I look back to how much I've dumped, if I was to put it into some sort of consciousness that we could see it as a ball or something, I would say the ball would be so big, it would be on every wall in this room, which is a 10 by 10 room sort of thing. And that's how much I've done. And I've still got that much again, because every day we're making a little bit more that we need to get rid of, because we see a different point of view, different angle. Someone says something, someone does something. So there's always a change in that brain box.
And then many of the times when these things do happen and occur in our daily lives, we usually use a landmark or something to pinpoint that moment in, and usually it's a reflection of the past, not the present or the future. So generally, in order to help counteract that, we need to embrace not the positive and the negative aspects of our daily lives and expel them, as call it what you will.
So anyone listening, if you feel you're stuck in a rut, you have to ask yourself, if I could step outside of myself and look at myself and ask myself, why are you stuck in the rut? What is your excuse? Tell me that, and then throw it away, because it's not a valid excuse. Now find out, what do you really want? Have a conversation with yourself.
And that's the other thing is that when we do get to that point, we really don't know what we want. And that's why we have people out there that are so stuck in their ways or stuck in their life that they actually don't know what their passions are, their desires are, what they want.
I don't know if I agree with you all the way down the line there, because I think we all have something and we have hope. But the problem is we don't believe we can go for it. So we don't try to go for it. So, it's like I've got this business, I'm running this business, it's driving me crazy, I don't know what to do with this business, blah, blah, blah. Well, why don't you give the business up? Well, then I'll have no money. Okay, well, what if you had all the $1 million, you won the football pools or something, what would you do? Oh, I would do this and I would like that. It's there. But they don't believe they can do it without the money or without the lifestyle. They have to realize the lifestyle they have is because of all the negative thinking. If they stop thinking negatively and start thinking, how can I get those things and what's the next step to do, and take those steps, they could end up with $1 million and a boat or whatever it is they want.
And I just say it in the way that it's broad spectrum too, because there are many different ways of aspects of seeing it, but by pinpointing it to two things is not enough, because people may have a passion but they don't have a desire. So you kind of have to, it's kind of broad spectrum. So while you may not disagree with it, it's still there are missing holes in every person's lives, regardless of which way, and we tend to fill that void with other
rubbish,
basically. I was going to say unnecessary stuff.
Yeah,
and that depletes the ability to grow, to even learn, to get where we want to be. And so I'm not perfect, I never will be, and not only that, but I understand where I need to be and how to action that in order to get where I want to be, to fulfill my desire, to feel my need, whatever that may be.
There are some people out there though who are they're like on a race in themselves to get from point A to point B in their life. And I often have to say to them, stop running, slow down. You're running. It's like if you go down the highway at 50 miles an hour, you think that's slow. But if you go through the high street at 50 miles an hour, you would think that's so fast because things are flashing past you so fast. It's relativity. People have to realize that every day there's relativity to who you are, what you're doing, where you're doing it, when you're doing it, why you're doing it, and what for, ultimately, everyone else.
Yeah, the majority of people, though, don't actually think that way. Like I said, with most of my clients, I sit there and go, why? Why is it that you think like that? Why is it that you do like that? Why is it that you
So what do you say? Why do you do it?
Why? By the time I get to the bottom of it, they've already got the answer that they seeked in the first place, and I've literally gone full circle. And I'm like, oh, what was my job? You know the answer all the time.
When people ask me why, and how, I always end up saying something like, it's a personal thing that you need to find out yourself, because you can't tell you can be a model and you can tell them, but they can't think with your brain, they can't move with your body, they can't smell with your nose and mouth, and so on, or see, whatever. So even if you teach someone, and believe you me, I've had people sit beside me, you do this and this and this and this and this, and they're like, oh, and then within seconds, do I really have to take this and put this here? Well, yeah, why not? Well, I don't know. I maybe thought it might look better over there. Well, put it over there then. Oh, but if I put it over there, it's not what you told me here. Well, that was just an example of what I told you here. You're free now to put it over there. Oh, but if I make that choice, what if I'm wrong and you're right? It's like, oh.
Yeah, but procrastination is a killer. but no, by using why is it that you, if you come to me and say, I want to spend more time with my family, well, why aren't you spending more time with your family? Oh, because I'm at work. Well, why are you always at work? Are you needing more money for overtime or something like that at work? Or is it that you have want to go to after work drinks? Why? So you go down this whole list of why. They actually do come, that little light bulb flicks off and it says, oh, well, I don't really need to do this, and I don't need to do this, and it will lead me to this. And now I have all the time in the world to spend time with my family, which is exactly what I really want.
But usually they renege on it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I've seen it, it's like, I get it, but
they of course they do. And then with every why that they have, when you finally get to that end goal, they come up with something else, which is why personal development is an evolution of never-ending cycle of why do we do?
Yeah. And well, that's exactly it. And the bottom line is, no matter how much we can teach and share and show and tell and whatever, we always have to remember that they're going to think with their history, the RNA, what mum and dad taught them, and Tom, Dick and Harry. And then it may be ancestral, like or soul coding, where they're encoded that they have to walk that negative pathway as a living, breathing example for everyone who comes into their life to come up against their negativity. So those other people learn not to be negative and they die negative, because that's their job. They're just a signpost. Don't be like me, but they come to you and they say, why am I negative? And they want me to do a miracle and make them positive. And sometimes I have to tell them, your job is to be negative, but you can be positively negative. Now that sounds really weird, okay? But here's an example, positively negative. Someone says, I want to change my job to them. They're listening. And they say, I agree with you. I want to change my job. You can change your job. Don't be like me. I will keep my job, but you could change yours, so they're giving that advice in a different way. And they, the few that I've had that are really negative actually did do that. They would go back to their family and say, don't take any notice of me. I'm just negative. I'm an example of what you don't want me to do. And so don't do it yourself. And it worked for her family, that particular one I'm thinking about. It worked. She came back and she said, they were listening to me. They never used to listen to me because she was always like, this is wrong, that is wrong, this, And now she's like, this is good for you. This is perfect for you. It's just not for me.
Yeah, it's almost like reverse psychology in a way.
It is what it is.
Yeah, and not only that, when you get to that point, you're like, well, I'm going to have to face reality at some point. I got to wake up to the truth, because this is the truth, and everything that I've seen previously is the illusion. And not only that, I'm now realizing that the past is irrelevant, but has made me who I am. And now I have to see everything in the moment, because I'm living and breathing right now, not in the future, and I'm not in the past.
It's hard for a lot of people to be in the moment. Because they haven't been taught to be in the moment.
Nope.
Even when we're babies and we're crawling, oh, look, there's something on the floor and I want to go over and see it. You're not thinking words, of course, but you've seen it, it looks attractive. And someone's, no, don't touch. and you look, cry, you've just encoded your whole body with, I can't do anything. And you grow up with that as a primary encoded into your brain, into your cells in your body while you're crawling. And so every time you work, let's say you're an adult now, and every time you're down on the floor, cleaning the floor, like you've got to mop the floor because the kids spilled some liquid or something, you don't realize you're going right back to that, I'm not allowed to touch things. And you get up off the floor and you don't know why you feel angry. And you say, oh, I'm angry because the kids spilled it. But it was nothing to do with the kids spilled it. It was the fact that you were crawling on the floor.
See, I'm different. I'd just go touch it for the hell of it, just because I'm different.
No, but you see what I mean, though. This setting in neuromuscular memory. I've written a lot about that as well. It's very important that people understand that everything you think is encoded into every cell in your body. And if you don't do, like I said, I go to bed at night and I dump the day, you're going to have mounds and mounds of negative energy in your body, in your aura. It's not good. So anybody listening, clean your aura.
Yes.
How's the time going? We've been chatting. I don't know.
Like 9:30 already.
Is it? Oh dear. Well, I suppose we should wind up then.
But we're going to wind up anyway. That's fine. I do want to let everybody know that we are going to be doing our next free online class, and tomorrow is going to be on spirit guides versus dark souls, and how to protect self in our daily lives. For those who are interested, the advertisement's already up. If you're on social media, go look for the advertisement. You're going to see the Zoom link there. You click on it at 2 p.m. Pacific time and 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is when we are going to be doing the class. Please go share the post out. Invite everybody that you want who is solidly interested in actually learning this subject, regardless, because these subjects do lead on to classes later on. So we do want people that really are committed to learning. But you can go over there. You can go to easypeasysolutions.org. Again, you can find us up on social media. You can find my stuff up on soma-fusion.com, somafusionmedia.com. You can find me on social media. Again, send me a message wherever you want. If you are going to make inquiries to the Samaras Education Center, you need to make your inquiries to samarasucc@gmail.com, and you can send your inquiries. It can be your questions. Let us know what you want to learn. You can even send us an email about what you want to hear on this show that you've heard this evening. But if you do want to find out all of our information, please go over to samarascenter.com, easypeasysolutions.org, samaraseducationcenter.com, which is actually a website that we're rebuilding right now, so hang tight, at universalcrashsearch.com and askdrmargaret.com. If you want to see Margaret's archives, go over to soundcloud.com/Dr. Margaret Speaks. If you want to see all the archives of this shows and many shows that is on the Soma Fusion Media network, you can go over to my YouTube channel. Please like, share, and subscribe over there. Press the little notification bell so that you know when there's shows on, because we have shows pretty much every single day of the week. And plenty of stuff goes up on that channel. And so go over to YouTube, look up Soma Fusion, Mind, Body, and Soul. And of course, go over to Amazon for all of Margaret's books, or you can go to somafusionmedia.com to the bookstore where I have the books up there as well as my own. There you have it.
See how talented you are?
I'm not talented.
That's your miracle. I can't do half that stuff. You know that. I sit there and call you up and then you fix me.
I am.
That's a miracle for me each day.
I am what you call humbly talented.
You're sweet, dear heart. Okay. I would just have one request though, for anyone who's going to your page on Facebook, I would love it if they would go to my page and friend me as well, because everybody's friending you because you're, managing everything. But hey, with the new Facebook rules and regulations, I used to have 5,000 followers and they would dwindle down to 300 and something. So if you like what I'm saying and you would like to hear me, please just go there and reacquaint yourself with me, because you can't share the way we used to share because they've blocked everything apparently. And so I guess I just,
So,
oh dear. One miracle coming up, you're coughing out something you don't need.
anyway, so what Margaret is talking about is the algorithms up on Facebook. If you would like to, Margaret is trying to get herself reacquainted back up on Facebook specifically. So if you are listening tonight, please go over there and actually give her a friend request and actually follow some of the posts up there. Basically, in essence, she's trying to gain some attention to resurrect her Facebook profile. A lot of the 3,500 people that actually are on her Facebook wall are not responding to her. So we are trying to find ways in order to for her post to be seen. So if you go, even if you don't send her a friend request, she has got public posts over there. So to help her, please go over there, share some posts that she has, and of course reacquaint yourself. Put a comment up in the little boxes.
And I don't mind people posting their little saying for the day. I mean, you're very good at making those sayings for the day, so you can share it to me. But I used to do a lot of things on there, but with the changes that have come around, I don't know what I'm doing. But I want to reach out and let people know that I'm taking down. Well, Katie's helping me. I'm taking down the old Sumaris Education Center. And the old Web Talk Radio page, okay? And I'm also taking down my husband's page because he's nearly 2 years. I may leave it, I don't know, I'm not sure whether to leave it for a few more comments for another memory of him passing. But really, he didn't have that many followers anyway. But so, we're doing a lot of changes. And when we get the university online going, it's going to be much more important than that. But we need the Facebook pages because that's how we can share. My Japanese students follow me on there, I know that, but they speak Japanese, not English, so they don't write.
For those who don't know, we do have a lot of Japanese listeners too. So I want to say welcome to the Japanese listeners who are out there, and some of them don't speak English, so I appreciate.
Well, they read it or they hear it, but they don't like speaking it.
Yeah, so I appreciate them who are interested in continuing to listen to us every Saturday night. For those who don't know, who are new listeners, we are on air at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or 4 p.m. Pacific Time on Saturday, every Saturday evening, unless something happens like by last week. But generally we're on every Saturday night with a brand new topic each week. And of course, I put it up on social media, what that topic is going to be. I encourage you guys to like, share, and subscribe to all of our stuff. That way we can get what we are talking about every week out there.
And, we don't usually know exactly what we're going to come up with until we get off and we talk about it and decide what we want to do next week. But I've been listening to Spirit a lot lately in terms of what we need to do. And I was hearing that with everything going on and families all separated and you can't go visit, like I can't visit my kids in England because I have not had the inoculation. So I was thinking about that, and I haven't put it into words with you, Katie, yet, but I was thinking about the fact that families are separated. And so I think we should do something about that. We'll think about it and talk about it, but there's a lot of people miles apart and
notices will be going up anyway. So so look out for that, and we can go from there.
So we'd like to, if we talk about separation and families far apart and so on, we'd like you to come on and tell us your stories, because it's important to let everyone know just what people are going through when they can't, get to talk to their family and friends, and it gives them an outlet to talk about it. So I don't know what format we'll take it, but that's something else that they were telling me to think about.
Figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
But with that said, we do got to bid you guys good night. And
Yeah.
like I said, we'll be back 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 4 p.m. Pacific Time next Saturday with a brand new topic. I will bid you all good night.
Good night. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.